I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM players, but I'm one lucky, happy Rams fan right now. As you can see, there it is. The first
Uh,
of many Ram Super Bowl hats you will be seeing over the next couple of weeks. And I did say we're
I
the CRM
am
players, right?
happy for you.
Yes, thank you. I received a lot of text messages, emails, uh, DMs, telegraphs. No telegraphs.
Telegraphs. Western Union
Western
delivered
Union.
by horse. Delivered by horse. Right.
Yeah. Pony Express,
Right. Pony Express, Wells Fargo wagon.
all that stuff. And thank you for everybody who did that. But I have to do one thing before we go any further. I owe it to my fandom. If I can only do this.
Oh my God. Ran it. Oh my Lord. We'll get to you, Sven. Don't worry. Holy
Okay,
cow.
we're gonna stop at Big Jackie.
Yeah, that's the breakdown.
Big Jackie cannot dance or sing or do any of that stuff, but I had to do it.
No,
You know-
of course. Undeniable.
Do you know what year that song was made?
Well, you actually told me because you showed me that before, so I won't say.
Well, it is a bit of a what we used to say back in the day, a bit of a bite, because the '85 Bears did the Super Bowl shuffle,
Exactly.
so a rash of teams wanted to have their own song after that, and we got Ram It, but that's okay because we now have 2 Super Bowl championships. So there it is.
Wow.
I feel so much better now.
Don't they count like didn't you have like early just straight non-Super Bowl, like just the
45,
championship? Yeah.
51, and then
But
99.
they count.
Oh, I count them as world championships.
Right,
But
they are.
Super Bowls, I can only say 2. But we have 4 overall.
Well, what haven't Giants have? Huh. Haven't thought about that. 86, 91. We have 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
But
2007,
before that-
2011.
Yeah, we have 4 Super Bowls, but I'm trying to think of what we have. I don't know what we have before that. We usually just lost to the Bears, lost to the Packers. Right.
Well, you lost the greatest game of all time, right? 1958.
That was the
NFL
big
championship.
one. We lost that, the one that put the NFL on the map. We lost that to the Colts. We lost 62 to the Packers, and we lost 63 to the Bears. But I don't know if we had anything preceding that, or I can't remember anything following it until the Super Bowl.
I wouldn't be surprised if you had
Yeah,
won something back in the day.
in 1938, we beat the Canton Bulldogs.
There it is. But yes, it's been 22 years since our last Super Bowl. So, Super Bowl win. We have lost 2 in between the one that we've won. So,
Well, congratulations, of course. I found myself literally yelling at the TV, which I haven't done for years, in support of the Rams, especially when they did that face mask that led to the Cincinnati touchdown.
oh God,
I was screaming at the
I
television.
lost it.
But I did too.
I'm really glad no cameras are on me at that particular time.
Well, and we
would've
have a
been bad.
surprise for you, Brent. Uncle Lou.
Alexa, roll the video.
And we have a reaction video to your reactions, and the reaction video is by Uncle Lou.
Oh man, Uncle Lou. All right. So what has Sven got here? We went with some some French here. Right?
Yeah. So
What is mon ami? I always thought that was
my
something
friend.
with love.
No, it means my friend.
Oh, my friend. Okay.
Bonjour, hello, my friend. Not. I
Greetings,
don't
my
think
friend.
Sven. The plural is mes amis with an S at the end of ami.
And
MES, new word AMIS.
yeah, Sven is trying to be a bit slick here with
I
this
know.
greeting. He's trying to bring in something that was going on in this ridiculous email chain we were just talking about with the happy hour crew, which I have to say, we're having a lot of fun with the happy hour crew. The last
Yes,
couple of
we
ones,
are.
they've been a lot of fun.
We do a whole
But
show just on revealing favorite movie choices.
that was a good one.
Can you imagine? Imagine like running clips of everybody's favorite movies.
No, because copyrights and
Exactly.
all
YouTube would
sorts
throw
of
us right off.
enforcement.
YouTube would fire us from YouTube.
They would just
Yeah.
yank us right off this show in mid-show. If that were to
Chrissy's
happen.
got Hola mi amigos. So she got the
So she went the
Spanish.
Spanish way.
Yeah.
So we got, is bonjour Italian or
No,
French?
bonjour is French.
All right, French. All right.
It technically means
I
good day.
I
Bon
could
good
see.
jour day.
I was looking into the green room and our guest was just shaking his head like, Brent, you're a real idiot, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, I see you. I see you.
That's right. There you go. You. I will not revealing names.
Yeah. Blame Google about this. Okay, we'll do it.
All right, Google, you're at fault. I don't think
Yeah.
that Google's listening, but
They're always listening.
oh, that's right. I'm sorry, everyone. Siri, I said something. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and they said that somebody was a jerk, and somebody was a jerk, right? And all of a sudden, Siri said, "That's not nice."
No, really?
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Yes. Siri
See,
went,
that's the
"That's
kind of
not
stuff
nice."
I
I
don't
was
like
fine
that.
with it.
I know, but I don't like that because every word, sometimes you just forget that every word you say is actually, some device is actually taking it all in. But that kind of brings it right back to the forefront when the things start answering things that weren't for them. Not
You know
good.
what?
Like that commercial, the Amazon commercial with
right.
Colin
I saw that.
Yost and Scarlett Johansson.
Yep.
I don't know if that was the best commercial to display what Echo can do.
You know what?
Because
It may not
there's
have
way
been,
too much going on in there.
but it was really funny.
It was funny until you start thinking, could this really happen? And
Yeah,
the
of
answer
course it
could
can.
be yes.
But how do you not laugh at fake your own death on March 8th? How do you not laugh at that line?
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
I
I wonder
just
if Colin and Michael Che wrote all that stuff because
I'm guessing that at least he did. I thought that was great. I actually look, I'm with you on it, but at a certain point I realized I spent half my life being surveilled by the FBI when I was young, right? So, and I didn't freak out, didn't bother me as much. The only time it bothered me was when I think they once trashed my apartment. It didn't take anything. They just kind of messed the apartment up. And it was right after I had gotten a couple of calls from them the night before trying to lure me into a conversation. But they were surveilling me for years and I was a kid, right? And believe me, theirs was the potential for
wait a minute.
devices
They've
doing
been surveilling you since you were a kid? Is that what I just heard you say?
Well, I was a kid when I was 17. That's when they were surveilling me.
I was thinking like
No,
you're a
not
little
since. They're
8-year-old
not still doing it. Yeah, right.
getting calls from the cops. Hey, Paulie,
What'd you pick up in kindergarten today? Did you pick up anything in kindergarten?
What'd you get for lunch? I suggest you get the pastrami.
Tomorrow. Just be smart. Eat the pastrami tomorrow, not the corned beef.
Yeah.
It's not center
It's like that. Take the gun, leave the cannoli.
Right.
kind
That's right.
of thing?
That was the line. Take the gun, leave the cannoli.
Frank, oops. I'm trying to keep it a surprise.
Are you talking
Our
about
guest
Frankenstein by Gene Wilder? That was one of the favorite movies.
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
That's
There
right.
it is. Oh, let's see. We got some. Paul is getting surveilled, and his house is getting ransacked by the FBI.
No,
Can
no,
someone hide my
was
IP?
getting surveilled, and it was my apartment was ransacked, and that was 50 years ago.
That was before
Literally,
IP addresses, basically.
that's right.
Maybe.
IP
No.
address means your address in Ipanema.
Wow. The
I couldn't
girl.
think of anything else.
Anyway.
What was I going to say?
Anyway.
Indianapolis? That didn't work.
All right. Why don't we do a couple of things before we bring our guest on? Because I know I have a strong suspicion that our guest and the venerable, the venerable, the venerable Paul Greenberg are going to hit it off because I know they both enjoy this thing, and I don't know that they know that they both enjoy it together.
This
gonna
thing
break
that
it
you're
right
going to
here.
show right now?
No, I'm not going to show anything right now. I'm just
Oh.
setting it up. This is the
Okay.
tease. It's not the really
Huh.
best tease, but it's a tease. Okay. But before we get to that, we're a week away from the reveal, the big reveal, the CRM Watch List 2022 edition. And we need an update. So I do turn it over to the venerable, not the venerable, the venerable.
Gilmore. Steve Gilmore. Where is he? Where is that venerable fellow?
The name is Paul Greenberg. He gets the full screen attention right now.
Woo. Oh, no. It can show my. Wait, it's on this side. My
What's
mole. Yeah. It's just a
okay.
discoloration. I've always had it. Now I pointed it out so everyone can see it in high def. So where are we? The watch list scoring is done. The winners are chosen. The surprises are dramatic. Not in terms of the winners, but in terms of what I found in the course of it, and you'll hear about that on the show next week. Basically, we're ready to roll, and I am not going to reveal a thing about the winners in terms of who won what, how they won. What did any categorical? Was there any winners elites? Were there any distinction? Were there any just straight out winners at all? I will say this. This is actually one of the most interesting watch list sets of results ever. The scoring was made considerably more difficult. The questions that were in the 13 pages of questions you need to answer were highly specific in at least one question to the pandemic. So that response mattered quite a bit. And the things I found, both the strengths and the lacks in the submissions, and this year there were 59 submissions, were actually quite astounding for the most part. Surprising in terms of strengths and surprising in terms of weaknesses. And we'll talk about some of that on the show. We have a big show. I highly recommend that if you're not registered for it on LinkedIn, that you register now. There'll be a link somewhere in the LinkedIn comments after the show, or otherwise just look up CRM Playaz award watch list award show. It'll pop up in the search. But unbelievable results. You will be both entertained. One thing we're going to do this year, which we will tell you, is that when the winners are announced, we've arranged to bring on spokesperson or spokespeople for each of them to accept the award. And we have, I think, every company accounted for. So just be ready for a great show. It's going to be amazing. And again, this is the penultimate. Brent and I will talk to you at a future date about the final CRM watch list, because there's some special things that are going to happen with that one.
Wow. Now that's a tease. I could have
tease.
learned a few things from that. Even our guest is in the green room, shaking his head in the affirmative. Did you see that last comment? I guess that was a comment. I know now why you want Frank on the show.
Is that
Sam
Bob
Cat
Fagel?
on the loose. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know what that means. Who's
I
Sam
don't
Cat's
either.
on the loose?
It must be a book.
Oh, wait
Is
a
that
minute.
the great?
I'm getting a positive from our guest. So I'm guessing once I introduce him and bring him on, he can explain that, because I can see from the look on your face and I can feel from the look on mine, we're both clueless here on that.
Yeah, entirely.
So why don't we do this? Why don't I? This is kind of weird
Yeah.
because usually you do the intros.
So let me introduce the venerable Brent Lee to do the intro for this guy.
Okay.
I've been waiting for weeks for that.
All right. Now, I know our guest as a co-member of the Gilmore Gang, which he had the venerable Steve Gilmore on countless times at this point.
Yeah.
So on Friday afternoons, Steve Gilmore brings a group of us together, and our guest coming up is one of them. He's like our media person. He's worked for pretty much, it feels like almost every network there has been. I know there's NBC, there's ABC, there's CNN. I'm probably missing a bunch of things. He's worked on news, he's worked on entertainment, he's done it all. He's a nominee, an Emmy nominee. Make sure I get that right. I think is it 1 or 2 times? 3 times.
3
times.
1 plus 2.
Yeah. He's also a fabulous guitar player. He's a musician. He even wrote, give me the affirmative if this is right. He even wrote one of the theme songs from one of those shows he was involved with. Is that right? He gives me the thumbs up. So I think I could probably go on and on with all the credentials, but I'm going to bring him on now. He is Frank Radice, TV exec, media consultant, man of a million talents, and a really nice guy too. There he is, Frank.
Ni hao, ni hao, hola.
Do you know
Bonjour.
it in Filipino? You know it in Tagalog?
Salam alaikum.
Wait a minute. I got something wrong. Tina Hall Chase Gilmore is saying, no, you're not just a nominee. You won an Emmy?
3.
Wow.
You won.
You won 3?
Wait, so you were
I
nominated for 3 and won 3?
No, I was nominated for more than I can remember. But I have to say, in all fairness, and not because I was the president of the Emmys, I won my awards many years before. I'll tell you something, Paul. Interestingly enough, when you were talking about the FBI, reminded me when I was at the University of Maryland in 1968. I joined the Weathermen.
Yeah, I was Weatherman too.
I just thought it would be a cool thing to do. The FBI came pretty much sniffing up right behind my joining the Weathermen.
That's immediate.
Yeah. So I was taking television classes at the time because I wasn't smart enough to take any other courses. So I took it's kind of like, taking basket weaving at the University of Miami. But I said, well, geez, it would really be cool. Why don't we, because we had this internal television system. And if you were taking like introductory zoology or introductory English or introductory math, there were lots of students classes and they did them with televisions. So there would be a professor and we would televise the professor doing the class, and there would be a student in the class who would be the TA in the room. And so I said, well, we've got all this equipment. We have these internal cameras and we have these internal monitors everywhere on the campus. Why don't we get the head of the SDS together with the school chancellor and put them in a room together and let them battle it out?
They agreed to do that?
They did. And interestingly enough, remember at that time, there were these student sit-ins. So they would strike the classes and everybody was sitting on the steps of the building. So you couldn't get in. Everyone was, they were the anti-war protesters. And when I got these two guys together, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. And we went in and we did this. And that was honestly the very first time I had an opportunity to see what journalism could do and what television could do. And that was actually 1968.
What you did was amazing, actually, because I was head of SDS at Northwestern and a weatherman. In fact, here, I'll show you something. This is those who know me have seen this.
You got your card?
No, this is actually a picture of me. We had just seized a building at Northwestern and we're waiting for the cops to come and arrest us.
Excellent.
1969. But
that was a good time.
We had our chancellor was actually a liberal, and we hated him, which of course, radicals. What people really don't understand is radicals hated liberals more than they hated conservatives.
Yeah.
Right. Because basically they were rich people who were talking a game and doing nothing to us. And then look what ended up happening. We ended up liberals, right? So,
in elections, you vote for the Democrats, and you get the scum from the top of the heap, and if you vote for the Republicans, you got the scum from the top of business. So if you had a choice,
right?
Wow, what a choice!
It's a different. But
the follow up to that though was that. Of course, that all went away in the, I guess, in the late 70s. It sort of disappeared, and I never felt threatened by it anymore. But come the election of George Bush, that night, something happened in the control room that got me in some serious trouble with the government, and I was investigated again. And it was just like I literally had forgotten how, back then I was a kid, didn't matter that much. It was kind of cool. This time it's like, oh crap, what have I done this time? And that actually lasted for a while, and I was shaking because I was convinced I was being my phone calls were being listened to, and it was a scary time. Much worse when you're older.
Yeah. Well, you're older. You kind of realize what you've done was at least half hormonal, right? So
I didn't really expect this to turn into like a jailbird conversation here,
But I'll explain the Sam Katz reference then.
Okay,
good. Then because I had 3 cats in my life over the course of about 45 years, just 3.
Oh,
and they and all 3 of them I named Sam. So Sam 1, Sam 2, Sam 3, and they were all Sam Katz. And so my wife said one night to me, she said, because cats they just hide. If you don't know cats, who's the cat liker here? Paul, are you a cat guy or okay?
We got
it's
six
beyond
in the house. 6 in the house
cats,
and 20-year-olds.
They can disappear and literally be right there. It's the weirdest thing. Cats have this way of doing that. And so my wife said to me, where does Sam go when Sam goes away? And I said, well, that's a great line. And I started writing a book about, the 2 of us leave the house and Sam jumps into the paintings on the walls. And he lives inside of those, so one painting is outer space and one painting is a farm and one painting is the beach, and he lives in those experiences. And
that's awesome.
And then he, we come home and he jumps out, and on his bed he's got some kind of toy that's from all of these things. So I did this book, and this artist friend of mine, at the time I was marketing the Today Show. That's the show I did the music for, Brent. I was marketing the Today Show, and they had a guest on, a guy named Charles Fazzino, who did the artwork, 3D artwork for the Super Bowl that year. And he was down there and he was talking, and I used to sit in my office and watch what was going on down in the studio. I ran down into the studio with my book in my hand, and I said to the guy, "Hey, take a look at this. Maybe you'd be interested in doing the artwork for this." He did. Random House published it. It got to be like number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. And that's the story of Sam Katz on the Loose.
It seems to be a collectible, because I just went to Amazon and it's $37 for the book.
Really? Over here in the UK, it's like 100 pounds.
Whoa.
Yeah,
well, I'm going to buy up the Amazon stock and sell them in the UK.
I'm not getting any of that. My contract. I feel like a Spotify musician making a penny for every 100,000 songs.
Yeah. So that's the publishing world for you.
I did tease this, but I'll throw it out there and then get out of the way. I believe you both enjoy fire sign theater.
Well, that would make sense, of course.
In the beginning, there was this turtle, and she lay down upon his neighbor, which was his brother, and lo, she bore him in tears and oak, which grew all day. Oh yeah, man, I got Nikki.
Yeah. Well, that was
a left to Connecticut, a right to the body, a left to the head.
Well, you know what? I remember back in the day when we were in college, there was always that show. I was in Chicago, of course, so there was the show, The Midnight Special, on the radio, and they were always carrying the fire sign theater. That's where I learned about them, right? And where I just fell in love with it, and I would just stay up and listen to them as long as they were on, all the time, always. And I had all their stuff back then, which I don't anymore. But I've recently rebought some of it just to listen again. But it's been years.
Is it still as good for you now as it was then?
It's I'm different, curious. But it's not. Well, yes and no. I appreciate what they did, but it's more appreciative than it is hilarious, right? Yeah. It's like you realize that they to me, I don't know what you think, and I'd really like to hear it, but I think they're the ones who have sparked a lot of contemporary genres and comedy, right? Them specifically.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things. That they definitely think that they were like the precursors to lots of stuff that went on in Chicago, by the way, Second City kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, now I remember when I was listening to them and loving them, we were all inducing the appetite stimulator, which helped to make that stuff even funnier. But I felt that what they did was brilliant. In the recording process. So when you listen to a Fire Sign Theater skit, you heard, the feet would crunch on the gravel, and you could hear it come from the left side of the speaker to the right side of the speaker. Sound effects that sounded like it really felt like it was an immersive experience, and which was I'd never heard that before, and that blew me away. And then come to find out that our good friend Steve Gilmore was involved in that process, and so
blew me away.
He and I actually did some recordings together. He's a great engineer, and so it just made sense, and we became friends starting with the music. And it wasn't until later that I learned he was involved with them, and then he introduced me to a couple of them. And then when I was the executive producer of entertainment news at CNN. Back in the early 80s, I had whoever was still alive in the Fire Sign Theater come on the show, and because I just wanted to meet them. To me, that was the greatest thing about being an executive in television, was being able to say, you know what, I really want to meet Prince. Let's bring him on.
It sounds good to me.
I envy you. I would have loved to meet those guys. I had a chance, but Steve had gotten tickets to the last show they were doing, which was here in DC, and we were going to go, but I think Tina got sick or someone got sick, so he couldn't go. He said, "Do you still want to go?" I said, "I'm not going to go without you. It doesn't make any sense."
See, that's
but-
another thing we have in common. DC is my hometown.
Well, see, I'm in New York originally, but I live here now. So wait, where do you live? Do you have a home in the U.S.?
New York.
So you're in New York. Where?
No, I'm in London.
No, I know you're in London now. I mean,
Yeah, no, I have a home in on 66th in Amsterdam.
Nice location.
A block away from the ABC studio.
You could roll into the studio in the morning.
Oh yeah, I used to.
All right.
I can't do that anymore.
Let's talk about something you just did. Tell us about, you just moderated a virtual panel for an event being held by SCAD. I don't know how many people out there know what SCAD is. What does it stand for? Savannah what?
Savannah College of Art and Design. So it is, in my mind, one of the premier film, television, dramatic art, writing, producing, design, physical design, architectural design, do clothing design. I mean, this school does, if it touches the arts, this school teaches it. And they have a campus in Savannah and one in Atlanta. They have one in the south of France, and they have one in Hong Kong. So it's a global school, and they're unbelievably well funded, and they have great students, and hundreds and hundreds of their students are out there actually making television and films today that all of us are already seeing. And so I've been a part of their group that puts together their curriculum for years, and I'm on the SCAD Film Festival Board of Advisors. So they have a big film festival once a year, and they have a television festival once a year, and I usually speak at both of them. Today, I put together a panel to talk about the state of the media, and I had the head media writer from the LA Times, Stephen Battaglio, was on the show. I had the chief of strategy for Paramount, which has Paramount Plus, and CBS, of course, and Viacom. They just changed their name from Viacom CBS to Paramount. I had that guy on. I had the guy who did the launch of Discovery Plus, a guy named Vince Manzi, who was the guy who came up with the must-see TV campaign for NBC back in the day. Yeah. So this guy was a monster back then, and now he's a consultant, and he launched Discovery Plus. I had the head of sales from Sinclair, which is America's, I would say it may be the biggest station group in America. So they have, I think, 185 stations across the country, covering some 98% of America. So they're as big as a network, except their stations. And I had a young lady who was the CEO and founder of a social media company called MT Deco Group, which is agency, which is she's just a brilliant young mind. And we had all these old guys and one young person to come on and talk about. Sean's not very old. The rest of us were. And we had her come on and talk about the importance of social media, not just as a marketing tool, but as a content distribution forum and that sort of thing. And so we talked about, where we are today in the industry and what happened to broadcasting versus cable versus streaming, and where do we sit in the middle of all of that right now? And I was one of those people, Brent will tell you, that was talking about how there's kind of the death of television in the broadcast genre, and then of course the Super Bowl hits 150 million and throws that idea right out
But we know why.
Because it was the Rams. Ram it up.
I was going to say, yeah,
ram it up. I think some 40 to 50 million of those people who engage with the football game also engaged on it in the stream. So it may have been around 90 some million that saw it in broadcasting, and then some 45 or 50 million that engaged in the stream. Those are big numbers, no matter where you look. And So we talked about, what is the demographic of people that are engaged in the stream? Well, obviously, it depends on what they're looking at, but the demographic is decidedly younger than the broadcast demographic, and certainly than the cable demographic. And is streaming starting to bundle? Yeah, it is. If you take a look at like YouTube TV, for example, there's a bunch of different streamers inside of YouTube TV. Amazon Fire Stick is a bundle. Those OTT devices, so over-the-top devices, are bundles, and people are starting to spend more money on their streams than they did on the cable, which I find to be interesting. So those were the things that we talked about. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I've got so many devices and so many $5 and $8 fees that I'm paying out there that it's ridiculous. When I die, I don't want my wife to know what these things really cost. It's kind of like guitars. You don't want to tell you. I have like a lot of guitars, and you don't want your wife to know what they really cost.
Right.
She's not listening.
But when you're dead,
don't worry.
What does it matter?
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I do think that. You know what? Who cares? I'm dead.
There you go. We've settled all of the world's biggest problems now, life's biggest problem.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So given everything you just said, so Brent and we've been, let's say, polemicizing on the idea that there's a significant, if not seismic, shift of generational power going on right now. It's in the process of, it's not complete. Gen X is still pretty active in the corporate leadership positions, but more and more millennials are beginning to take over those roles. Gen Z now has buying power that they typically had gotten from their parents. Now they're in the workforce. And those are significant changes. And how they consume content, of course, is very different than our generations, with some exceptions, obviously. But and that means that a lot of, at least in the world of the world that we mostly inhabit, on the enterprise, business, tech universe, most of the companies are not ready for that. They're weak. You have companies like Adobe already on creation and actually have a message around connected creators, with Creative Cloud. But most of the companies, if you look at it, are still looking, and there is some movement in this, but are generally still looking at this as almost media is just not their big concern. They use it. They provide things that are, say, videos and other, but they don't there's nothing strategic about it, really. It's just based on, okay, let's just do this stuff. So Salesforce created a network called Salesforce Plus. And what that is a network. Interesting enough, to show you the level of confusion that's out there, when it got announced, it was announced that, not by Salesforce, but by the media, announced it as a live streaming service or Netflix of business, neither of which it is. It's a network, and it's designed to be a digital broadcast network. Okay. But they're not, for example, all they're producing is Salesforce content. They're not interested in things like audience participation, and which are some of the newer characteristics, at least according to how we're thinking of this. How do you look at all of this? I mean, those are big shifts. People aren't ready. Distribution seems to be a big problem. So how do you look at all this?
So I go back to when Nielsen was the sort of the provider of data and analytics about who's watching and what they're watching, which was the thing that was the center of advertising rates. So a show that got a higher rating could demand a higher amount of money, cost per thousand, for an advertisement that they sold. Those numbers were based on, in the beginning, diaries. So people actually had to fill out a piece of paper to say, and by the way, in the entire universe of viewing audience, it was only a few thousand people actually got those diaries to fill them out, and they had to be accurate with them. You had to trust that they were accurate, and they would send them back to Nielsen, and that's how those ratings were figured. And that would be baby boomers and to some extent millennials. But at the beginning of millennials, that started to fade out. And these things called people meters started to come in, and people meters were attached to the box, to the television, and only a handful of people got people meters. But the people meter actually knew what it was you were watching. Okay, so now you're talking about a different way of getting analytics. Now, as we move forward into the streaming era, so I made a big giant leap here. Everyone is a people meter. Everyone. So anytime you're watching, looking, how long are you watching? What is it that you're watching? Are you interacting with it? Because now with content being distributed online, you can interact with it. Now there's this new thing called Next Gen TV, which is NTSC 3.0, which will allow you to interact with broadcast television. That's going to be a big difference. But the thing is you're absolutely right. The audience that is taking over, the audience that everyone wants to get, is the Gen Z audience, because they're the ones that are consuming the content in the places where people are watching the most content. So I'm thinking telephones. It's unlikely that a kid is watching television. They just don't. They may watch television because they're casting it from their phone to their TV, right. But they're certainly not watching television news. They're relying on notifications, which then allows them to go and see something. So that the way that the content is being consumed is dictating what's happening in the industry going forward. Now, you're right. All the companies are not looking at that, because the success of any of these companies is totally dependent on the loyalty of the viewer. So the customer has to be considered before it's like the customer has to be considered before the distribution model is considered. And not all the companies are looking at that. I think of NBC Peacock. I don't think Peacock, for example, which has been roundly lambasted for its coverage of the Olympics and their lack of promotion and not the ability to know when something is happening and who's doing what. Kids want to know that stuff, and kids are the next generation of content consumers. And television and media needs to understand that they need to develop the next generation of content consumers, or they're gonna go fallow. And that's what some companies are doing. And I don't think Comcast is doing it right. They're still living in a kind of an old school model. But I think that Paramount is doing it right, and they're putting their stuff together in such a way that people can discover what they want to see. Things work together. They work more like someone who is technically savvy, understands how to consume that content. And I think that's where the audience is headed, and that's where the media needs to go.
Speaking of which, you talked about like the last place that generation in particular goes for news is to their television. But then you have CNN, who's been talking about CNN Plus for a while. I know you have some thoughts on it. Do you think that whatever they do is going to work to capture that particular audience if they're not going to the TV right
now? From what I hear, my answer to that would be no. I think that they're from what I hear now, I'm not sitting in their production meetings, so I don't know if they're doing things behind, and if they're smart, they are doing things behind the scenes that they haven't let out yet because they haven't launched yet. But you can see promos for CNN Plus on CNN, so you get an idea of who's on CNN Plus. And for the most part, it's a lot of people that are on regular CNN, which says to me that they're missing an opportunity to do something new and something different. There has been no discussion, from what I can tell, for example, of use of user-generated content, think TikTok, or use of interactivity, think any interactive website. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or LinkedIn, or that's what And LinkedIn, by the way, is probably, it's the millennial version of what all those other things are in a business world, as opposed to something that the next generation of people will be engaging with. And there's a few people. Look, there's people like Paul and myself who don't fit the mold because we're doing all that stuff anyway. But we're few and far between. It's a whole different audience, and that's what these organizations, these big companies, have to be thinking about. And moving them from point A to point B is like trying to push a mountain up a hill. Nothing moves quickly. And the other thing is that these companies still are living in this let's have a meeting about it kind of world. And that's just not the way to get stuff done. The way that new stuff happens is by letting entrepreneurial spirit come in and do something new and different that strikes up the imagination and makes people want to engage with it. Sure, give me a good TV show, give me a great song, hits. How many people have hits? To be a hit, it's really hard, but you have to continually churn stuff out. And the stuff that you churn out has to be interesting. It has to be compelling, and it has to be marketed right. It has to be promoted. And by the way, when you're talking about media, cost of media is very expensive. I was charged with launching a television network recently in a foreign country, and they said, well, we want our stuff to be on the radio and on the television and in billboards and on the sides of buses. And we want to be in these countries and we want to be in these cities. And I turned around and I said, okay, that'll cost you $15 million for 3 weeks. They went
3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, well, the only thing you can do is like really, if you want to see it, just really put the 2 secret words when it comes to marketing something is reach and frequency. It's about how many people can you get to hear your message or see your message. That's reach. And frequency is how many times that message is told. So you need to have those 2 things in order to make a successful campaign to market anything. And that's really expensive. Even if you choose only to do it online, you've got to buy every single ad placement on every single online. And who in the world really engages with a website anymore? Come on.
You're right.
I don't know anyone who engages with a website. To me, the websites are dead.
Well, I mean, you're going to look at it for the basics, but you only engage as e-commerce for the most part now.
Yeah.
But to your point, I completely agree. But let me ask you this then, because there's a lot. Okay, so let's presume that you have some companies who make the decision to move into this new model, and they actually at least understand it. One of the things that seems to be a debatable question, or not to, I think, either me or Brent, is it debatable, is the idea of the quality of production value, the production values of the actual show itself, right?
Yeah.
There are people who say it's only the content that really matters. It doesn't have to be, and there's still a lot of people who say that. And then there's a kind of the minimalist approach, which is your audio shouldn't freeze and your video shouldn't be distracting, which is basically it's there, it's working well enough for you to get across whatever it is you're getting across. And then there are more, in Brent and my world, is let's buy every single piece of gear in the entire world and try it out and make it work, right? So that we have high quality video and excellent audio, and it's more than a distraction, it's actually adds to the quality of the show. I'm astounded personally that there's a big debate on this thing. I don't get it, but what's your thinking on that?
Well, let me say this: the quality matters, but now that you can pick up a iPhone 13 and shoot something that looks like it was shot on film. That you can do, depth of field and the imagery is beautiful when you can do that kind of thing with an iPhone 13, that says somebody that's really smart knew they had to do something that was of high quality. I personally think that, even the some of the shows on like Bravo, some of those reality programs, those things are very well produced and highly sophisticated, shooting with Alessas or Red cameras, really the best equipment that you can use. But my personal opinion is the better the quality, the more likely it is I'll spend some time watching it. My favorite television show right now is 1883. That is the most beautiful and probably the best television show on the air right now, my opinion. And it is beautifully shot, beautifully acted, beautifully directed. It feels like a movie. And I want to watch it and the music is compelling. It's something that I want to watch because I feel like I'm getting a lot for my money when I'm watching it. By the way, somebody's really taking offense at my saying that websites are dead. Not all websites are dead.
Sven.
Amazon's not.
That was Sven.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Don't worry. Sven takes offense to everything.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that there's engagement. Anyway, so the quality matters. When we were doing the panel just before this, a number of students were asking the question.
That's your buddy. Michael Markman.
Hey, Michael. We're asking the question, what in the streaming world will be different for those of us who are writers and producers and directors and cameramen and sound designers and that sort of thing. And we discussed that, and the people that are there and doing those jobs right now totally agree of the importance of that. And it matters to everybody, even generated content.
Yeah.
Look at the stuff on TikTok. That stuff is amazing.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
And people can tell the difference between crap and not crap.
Well, you know what? Just as an example of what you're saying, if you look at it slightly historically, go back to the very early days of YouTube. People were just enamored of the fact that someone could see them on a site somewhere, and the quality didn't matter. Now, if you literally haven't produced it and it wasn't at minimum 1080p, hopefully 4K, and the sound quality is off the charts fantastic, people aren't even going to watch it.
No,
it's just changed. YouTube is a good example of that exact evolution.
So I sold my first record in the Brill Building in the early '60s, and I remember the guy I was sitting across from the record company was Amy Bell Buddha Records. They did a lot of bubblegum music at the time. Gimme,
Tommy James and the Shondells.
That's right. Freddie Kim.
Yeah.
Those people. Those guys said to me that if you put the needle on the record, and if I'm not into it in the first 3 seconds, I'll just chuck it into the corner. So move ahead 60 years, and if I'm looking at that video and it doesn't look good and it doesn't sound good, and immediately in the first couple of seconds, I'm just going to, in the case of TikTok, I'm just going to swipe up and go to the next one. So it's exactly the same philosophy. It's just moved ahead 60 years.
Well, I investigated that thing. Did you ever read Eugene Wei's posts? Eugene Wei wrote EUGENEWEI.com. He wrote 3 posts on TikTok's algorithm that are absolutely the most brilliant posts I've seen pretty much about anything. And it's worth reading. But the other thing I investigated was the actual TikTok video creation tools, not just the native ones, but there are at least 12 other, I'll call them platforms, but apps, basically apps platforms for TikTok video creation. And the level of sophistication of those apps, and actually the native ones too, is astounding. What you can do with very little. We're all in the enterprise tech universe now. The big thing is no code and citizen developers and things like that. This is literally that without any fuss or discussion. It's just there. And people are using them who are 14 years old.
There's a video app called Magisto. And what you do with Magisto is you just dump all your stuff into it, and you pick a song and you hit make movie. And on the other side, it add graphics, do anything you want. There's no coding. It's not difficult. You're not worrying about what the f-stop is. You don't care. It just does it for you. And then it adds all sorts of video effects if you so choose. And then it comes out on the other side as this cool little piece of video that just, it made it for you. And there's so many of those apps out there right now that people can use, that look, back in the day, if we wanted to, jump cut something, it was a mistake. Don't jump cut. You can't do that. Or if you let the film, if the film light got onto the film and it flared on the side, you can't use that. It's no good. It's not fit for broadcast. Now, as of course the music video industry took that and turned it into something positive. Now it's taken for granted. It's funny, all of these things that were bad in the 70s, if you were a professional in this industry, at the time I was a film editor, if you were a professional in this industry, you couldn't do certain things. And just a few years later, the music video industry turned it upside down. We used to say, make sure you're on sticks when you shoot that shot. And then all of a sudden, AT&T started doing this shaky cam stuff. And the next thing you know, everybody wants the shaky cam. It didn't matter whether it worked or not. You had to have shaky cam. It's kind of like, what strategy do I need to use for voice AI, for example? I don't know, but I got to be in voice AI. And the same thing with design technology in film and video.
Amazing.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Answer it any way you wish, because I know Sven has a bit of an ulterior motive to this question, but I'll pop it up here anyway. He wants to get your opinion on Clubhouse.
So I think Clubhouse is great. I think it's a great idea. I think it offers a lot. But I'll tell you, my personal opinion is I got really tired of it after about a month or two of using it. It didn't, maybe I need the visuals. Maybe if there was, what we're doing here is Clubhouse with videos. If other people were actually able to raise their hand and come in and start talking and you'd bring them up, that to me would be, do that. To me, just doing it with audio, it's kind of like, I want to see somebody's face. Sure, there's a name there. That's, well, look at that. The president of NBC is on there. I honestly just kind of don't really care anymore about Clubhouse.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I would say the thrill is gone, but I never had it. So
I always thought there was some promise to it, but I thought I had to wait till all the celebrities decide to go to another flame that the moths they are attract. So, I
agree. It's funny. I was directed towards Clubhouse in the early days by a celebrity, by a guy named Greg Grunberg. So Greg was the guy who played he's a great guy, absolutely great guy.
I've seen him on so many damn shows.
He's everywhere. He's like one of the great character actors alive today right now. He's been in Star Wars and 2 Star Trek movies, and he's one of the stars on that old TV show Heroes. But he just seems to be everywhere. And I was talking to him one day, and he says, "I'm gonna hook you up with Clubhouse. You're gonna love this." And I went, "Yeah, what is it?" He goes, "Hey, you try it." He didn't explain it to me. So I got this invitation, and all of a sudden I went into it, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of neat." Then I got off, and I accidentally hit a button that took me into a Clubhouse conversation, and I didn't realize I was in it. And I looked at my phone, and I looked at my phone. I was hearing stuff, and I was going, "What the hell is going on?" And it was like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this topic. I don't care about these people. I don't care about this tech. Hey,
Okay.
And that's pretty much the state of it. You know, it rose and then it fell. Right.
Yeah.
It's right now it's just settling into whatever it's going to be. I mean, there's some value into, I can see doing some things like, for example, I could see doing, hey, you know, interview with Frank is over. He's agreed to come on for an hour after Clubhouse. So if you want to carry the conversation on, talk to him a bit, come over to Clubhouse at this time, like that, you know, after party.
Yeah,
so
I like that. I think that is a good idea, but why not do that after party like this?
Yeah, we can do that too. You know, it's just, it's just playing with, you know, that there it's just playing with media, right? So
yeah,
you know, like trying to figure out.
And the audio is pretty good. I mean, you got to admit the audio quality, even if you're on a phone, it's pretty good, and it's crisp and it's nice and all of that.
Absolutely.
But you know, it also, I never did find myself being so engaged by it that I would go and sit in a room and just listen to a conversation like that. It did remind me of a radio show back in 1955, 56, something like that. It felt like that.
Yeah. Although I like radio better than I like Clubhouse.
I agree. I agree. But you know, that's why Audible is so amazing, because you know, there's so many really cool things on. I don't really have time to sit and read a book, but I'll listen to a book on Audible while I'm in the tube, or I'm walking to the store, or I'm, you know, I even at night. And then my wife hates this. Even at night, as I'm going to bed, I'm listening to something. And now Audible has started to do these multi-character, highly produced, sound designed, kind of like the Firesign Theater, unbelievably good stuff. And it was like, now all of a sudden I'm engaged with audio. Because that to me, and it goes to your question about production, that to me says, wow, this is really cool. There was something I was listening to, I think it was called Guilty. And it was a multi-character piece on Audible. And it was fascinating, and it kept me going. And, you know, there was a documentary that a woman had done on that woman who was dating Epstein, who just was convicted. And it was fascinating, and it was done with characters, and it was done with voices, and it was done with sound effects and music. It was absolutely engaging.
Like a morality play.
Yeah.
Kind
there you go.
But
I liked it.
No, I would too. Look, I still remember the equivalent thereof in the, I guess it would be when I was a kid, so I was probably maybe 10, so like 1960, of radio plays, right? Where they would do plays on radio, where we'd have multiple characters, multiple people acting in front of those big RKO mics, you know, and I love those things. I thought they were great.
By the way, there is a series that you can find online called Radio Retropolis. Radio Retropolis is literally rebroadcasting those old radio shows. So Superman, the original Superman shows, or those great, like, sort of Nick Danger Third Eye things. Those great, and they're all online, and it's unbelievably good. This friend of mine who runs is the president of a company in California called Associated Television International, Jim Romanovich. He's an actor, but he's also a business guy, and he does the voice of that announces and introduces these things, and then has a conversation about them after they play. This is the place where you can go and listen to those old 1940s, 50s, and 60s radio shows. Fabulous.
Yeah, I used to listen. Yeah. You know, one thing I used to listen to on radio was Burns and Allen when they were on radio, right?
Cracked me up.
Yeah,
so
hilarious.
Funny.
The TV show was not as good as the radio. It was good,
but
it was not as good as the radio. I love the radio. That I'll bet if I can find them, I'll listen to that again. That's
got to be there.
I already
somewhere.
Listen, I literally already went on and have it teed up to go to it after the show.
to Radio Retropolis. Check it
It's
out. You'll
already
like
waiting already.
Yeah.
I'm going to
love it. So
thank you.
One last thing.
Yeah.
You're all in all these different forms of media. I mean, a lot of different forms of video and different kinds of media. But you
I know where
do
you're going.
a regular newsletter.
Yeah.
Why do you do that with all the stuff that's going around and what we just talked about? You do is it daily? A daily
Yeah.
newsletter?
Yeah.
Why you do
daily. So
Daily.
it's so much work. I'm pissing off my wife. It's the guitars, the listening, the newsletter. God, stop. My main reason for doing it, there's a couple of reasons. One is it forces me to go through all of the content that I would normally read and make sure that I'm up to date and that I'm being that my knowledge bank in all these different areas is increased, and it increases every day. The second reason is because I engage with a very elite group of listeners. I get to see, that's one of the things I really like about the newsletter format. I get to see who's looking at my stuff. I get to see what stories they're most interested in, and I can help use that data to make the next episode or the next issue. I call them episodes. The next issue better, and I want to make sure that I'm continually engaging with the people that I think are important to what it is I do now. I don't do very much anymore professionally, but I want to make sure that I'm continuing to engage with those people who have been in part of my professional life for a long time. I have many television executives who are current and past television executives, and music industry people and musicians and artists, and the folks who are interested in the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. And thirdly, I have an eclectic sort of way of curating, and I'll put a story in about outer space right next to a story about transportation or travel or music, or so I want to make it really just stuff that I'm interested in, and it turns out that a lot of people seem to be interested in the way that I curate this thing, because it's like if it's like TikTok. If you don't like this story, you read the headline, just go to the next story. Oh, I like that. Click on it, read the whole thing, and then comment to me about it if you like. And so I really cherish the group that engages with the newsletter, and I respect them. And I want to make sure that I can continue as I get older to be relevant. That's important to me. It's a personal thing, but I don't want to become irrelevant all of a sudden. I want to make sure that I'm engaging and continuing to live a life that I find interesting. That's why I keep playing music.
Amen.
Although I can't quite do the things I used to be able to, but
come on, I send you all those Prince videos. I expect you to be like, doing your version of that stuff.
I actually used to do my version of all of that stuff, because all of those songs were sort of right in the middle of what it was I was doing at the time. I actually I used to be a producer for Nightline. And I went to Ted Koppel one day and I said, there's this new thing called MTV. He goes, what the hell's that? I go, it's music on television. We should do a story about it before it actually launches. And he goes, oh, where do you have to go for that? And I go, I need to spend a week in LA. I used to do stuff like that just to take trips to LA.
Yeah, you could take a
this
trip.
Is a great, really important. And so, the kind of stuff that made MTV in the early days influenced the music that I was playing. And Prince was actually one of the few artists of color that MTV played, along with Michael Jackson. There was a lot of issues about MTV being way too white in its early days. So I actually had an opportunity. I interviewed Rick James, who was very upset about it, and it turned out that because when I finished the piece, Ted Koppel said to me, "Well, this is good, but there's no controversy." And I went, yeah, I know. I can't find any controversy. And then we got a call from Rick James saying, hey, I hear you're doing this story about MTV. I need to talk to you. And the next thing you know, we got Rick James saying, MTV doesn't play black music. And then I went and interviewed the president at the time of BET. which had also
Johnson?
just started, Bob Johnson, who
Right.
was like he must have been like 30 years old at the time. And all of a sudden now we had the controversy about what was going on in music television in that day. That's when Nightline said, yeah, okay, we'll put that on the air.
Wow.
Wow,
That is so
that's
cool.
amazing.
That's a great
That,
story.
what a history.
By the way,
What a,
can you
not
explain
forget
something
history.
here?
What a present.
Yeah.
Ah,
But
thanks.
I want him to explain this. I see this
So
picture,
that's
and
Dick
the first thing that
Ebersol.
comes to my mind is Dick Ebersol a giant? He looks huge.
Yes,
here.
he is huge, but I'm pretty small. I'm only like 5'9", but Dick is like 6'5", and so
wow.
yeah, he's a big man, and he was actually one of the greats in our business. I had an opportunity to work with him at NBC Sports, and then again when I was the president of the Emmys to actually induct him into the Emmy Hall of Fame. That's what that award is at that time. He's just a great guy. His wife, Susan St. James, of course, a pretty well-known actress back in the 80s. I actually tried to make a Susan St. James joke at the award ceremony, and nobody laughed. It was horrible. It was like 5,000 people in the audience, and I made some Susan St. James. Yeah, it's really great to be here with all of you people, but more great to be here with Susan St. James. And it was like crickets. It was horrible.
If it bombed then, could you imagine how it would go over now?
Oh my God. But he was such a gracious guy and a real supporter of mine, and I was a great supporter of his. Of course, he had a period of time where he was the executive producer of Saturday Night Live too,
Right.
and at the time, I was the guy who was doing the promotion for Saturday Night Live, and so I had an opportunity to work with
You're
him
now my
and
hero
with,
officially.
and
You're
with
my
Lorne
official new
Michaels.
hero.
Wow.
I'm getting.
So
I've watched that show since episode 1.
Wow, Frank.
My hero.
I did the first promos with Will Ferrell too.
Oh.
I said let's take Will Ferrell out into the middle of Times Square and put him up on a giant stand and let the smoke come up behind him with all the red lights and all stuff like that. Cost a bloody fortune. We shot him on film. And Lorne Michaels said to me, we won't be doing that again.
Well, I've heard he's notoriously cheap. But
well,
by the way,
you know what?
I did this. I'll tell you something. If you ever watch the promos for Saturday Night Live, it's usually the artist standing next to the musical guest making a stupid joke that nobody laughs about.
Right.
So I said, I have a great idea. Why don't we actually do a sketch with your writers writing a sketch with the artist and the musician? And we'll put them on the floor while they're building the sets in the background. And we'll do this really cool little sketch and we'll turn that into the promo. He said, okay, we'll try it. We did it twice. And then he said, yeah, we're going back to the old style. It was so good.
Way better.
I had a picture of me with Quentin Tarantino. I was directing Quentin Tarantino in a promo.
Oh, wow.
And so at least I got that photograph.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Again,
This is awesome.
my comic hero starts with
the
Marx Brothers and keeps going.
If our buddy Jeff Risher had been in the audience when you told that joke, he would have laughed.
I see that.
He would have laughed. All right. I got just one final question. I've been saying that the last 20 minutes. Last question. What company could you see as the model for the future in handling all this media stuff? I have a guess. I'm looking at Amazon as a possible model because of their subscriptions, because they do their own content, because they have Twitch as a way of outletting and using gaming content. They've got IMDb. They just bought Thursday Night Football. They have their own devices. They even have their own digital ad platform.
Well, and of course,
model.
Yes, and I would add to that probably the most important part of that is the Amazon cloud and
AWS.
So yeah, so you put all of those things together, and Amazon just goes up to the top of the list. In terms of content creation and nipping at their heels, I would say it's Paramount.
Really?
Not Netflix. But clearly, I totally agree. Amazon is at the absolute pinnacle of that, and I think that if you're talking about quality content creation, and look, Paramount's a big company. Viacom, CBS. Now there are some rumors out there, which the guy from Paramount would not talk about. He actually said he wouldn't talk about it, that CBS might be spun off from the new Paramount company. That makes some sense to me. But that doesn't, Paramount being a film company also will continue to create content that will live in all these other places. So, it's not unusual to see a Warner Brothers thing appear, or a Sony movie appear on NBC, ABC, or CBS, or any one of them. Paramount does the same thing. They all do that. But the quality and the way that Paramount is building its universe, I think is they're going to nip at the heels of Amazon. They're not going to touch Amazon anytime soon, but I think that they are going to be a big player, and eventually I think they may be a bigger player than Netflix.
Do you think Netflix gets bought by somebody?
No, I think Netflix has to buy something. So I don't think Netflix gets bought.
Okay.
Wow. Awesome. All right.
Maybe
You ran over
Netflix
time, but
buys
it was too good.
Roku. Netflix maybe buys Roku.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to buy Roku. They can't.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll make it as a
No,
standalone.
Netflix buys the New York Times so they can acquire Wordle.
Oh my God, it's definitely gotten harder. I get up at 5 or 6 in the morning and I do the Wordle, and it's like, what's happened these last 3 days? Oh, it's crap.
I'm 16 straight. I started 16.
Are you really?
16. Yeah, I've hit it 3 times in 2.
My wife had never done it before. She did it the first one in 2. I was like, what?
I have not done it.
It's a lucky guess on the first one that you eliminate. Once you get 3 or 4, you're pretty good.
I have a friend of mine who uses the same first word on everything, and it's been very successful for him. I don't know.
Well,
anyway, there you go.
right.
But look, thanks, guys. I really.
You're just getting some confirmation. Wordle has gotten harder. Stupid.
Yeah.
Times. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, it's been a pleasure. I know you're over in
Amazing.
England. It's a little later over there. You had a full day of talking and moderating, and you'll be doing a lot more talking tomorrow on the Gilmore Gang. And I get a chance to rest and not say anything, because that's what I do on the Gilmore Gang.
Unless I bring up Prince or the LA or the Rams.
Yeah.
You and I need to have a discussion about our weatherman days.
Uh-oh.
I remember my weatherman days like. Anyway, so see you, boys.
All right.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks,
again,
Frank. It was amazing.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And on behalf of Frank Radice, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we can't end the show unless we show you this. Bye, Minnie.